I almost sold my XLM, but now I'm glad I didn't. I was this close to hitting that sell button, watching the charts flatline, headlines shouting that Stellar was done, YouTubers dumping XLM from their portfolios. Felt like everyone had moved on. And honestly, I almost did too, but something told me to wait. And now, I'm glad I didn't sell a single token, because what's happening with XLM right now beneath the surface is something most people still don't see coming. While everyone's chasing hype, Stellar is silently building one of the most powerful real-world crypto ecosystems we've ever seen. And if you're still holding XLM or thinking about getting back in, you're going to want to hear this, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why I held on and why the real move for XLM might just be beginning. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This channel isn't for the hype crowd. We go deep into the fundamentals, the institutional moves, and the stuff the mainstream never talks about. If you miss one of these uploads, you might just miss the window, because when XLM moves, it moves fast. And by the time everyone's talking about it, it's already too late. Let's get into it. The breaking point, why I almost gave up on XLM. Let me be real with you. There was a stretch just months ago where it felt like XLM was going nowhere. The price was stuck. The excitement around smart contracts was going to other chains. And let's be honest, when you're holding a bag that doesn't move while everything else pumps, it messes with your head. Ethereum had its moment. Solana came roaring back. And Stellar? It was quiet. Too quiet. Even with all its history and the narrative of cross-border payments, it just wasn't showing up in the headlines. And that silence? That's what almost made me walk away. Because when you see tokens you never heard of doing 3x, 5x, even 10x, and your XLM is sitting there like a rock, it's hard to stay patient. You start thinking you made a mistake. That maybe this project had its shot in 2017 and missed it. That maybe it really was just XRP's little brother. I started doubting the fundamentals. Started watching influencers say Stellar's dead. Started questioning why big names weren't talking about it anymore. But here's the thing. That silence wasn't a signal to sell. It was a signal to look deeper. Because under the surface, Stellar wasn't dying. It was evolving. And I want to take you back to what I found. Because the minute I saw it, everything changed. Let's zoom in. It wasn't just that Stellar was keeping quiet. It was that they were working on exactly the thing people said they lacked. Smart contracts. And not just some cheap EVM clone to catch hype. Stellar was building Sorabon, a custom smart contract platform designed to integrate seamlessly with their network, built for real-world use, built for institutions, and built for scale. That alone shifted my thinking. But it was only the beginning. Then I saw something else. While XLM's price action looked boring to retail traders, on-chain metrics told a different story. Development activity on GitHub was spiking. Wallet creation wasn't dropping, it was slowly growing. And transactions? They were stable, reliable, quietly flowing like a heartbeat. It wasn't hype. It wasn't speculation. It was infrastructure being laid down quietly, methodically, and with intention. So why wasn't the price moving? Because Stellar isn't here to pump and dump. It's not built for hype. It's built for a real-world financial system that hasn't arrived yet, but is now finally starting to. That's when I realized something. I wasn't holding a slow altcoin. I was holding a sleeping giant. A network that wasn't dead. It was just maturing. And what happened next proved I was right. Because when Sorabon launched on mainnet and Palago Labs stepped into the spotlight, the entire game changed. Let's talk about that next. The turning point, what I saw that changed everything. I remember the exact moment things started clicking. I was scanning updates from Stellar's dev team. Not the kind of stuff you find trending on crypto Twitter. I'm talking about the quiet GitHub commits, the tech roadmap, the details most retail investors overlook. And then I saw it, Sorabon was live on testnet, and mainnet was coming fast. And that's when the whole story changed for me. Because for years, Stellar had this reputation. Fast, cheap payments. Great for remittances. Great for cross-border use cases. But limited. And without smart contracts, let's be honest, it was easy to write it off as a one-trick pony. But Sorabon? Sorabon changes that entirely. This isn't just an upgrade. It's not a patch. It's a complete evolution of the Stellar network. A smart contract layer that doesn't sacrifice speed or cost. One that's custom-built, not cloned from Ethereum. It's secure, scalable, and tailored for real-world financial applications. And that's when I realized something crucial. The narrative around Stellar was about to shift from a simple payments network to a full-fledged programmable finance platform. And while that might sound like just another buzzword, it's not. Because when I looked deeper into the early Sorabon ecosystem, what I saw wasn't DeFi casinos. It wasn't copy-paste projects trying to farm hype. It was purpose-built applications focused on real economic utility. And that's when I found Palago Labs. Now, if you don't know what Palago is, get ready, because this is where everything comes together. Palago Labs is building DeFi infrastructure on Sorabon, but not for retail speculation. They're focusing on trade finance, a multi-trillion-dollar market that most of crypto completely ignores. This isn't NFTs or meme coins. This is businesses, banks, and institutions getting access to programmable liquidity for real-world goods and services. And the best part? It's all happening on Stellar. Not Ethereum, not Solana, not Avalanche. That was the turning point for me. Because while most chains are still chasing total value locked and TVL leaderboards, Stellar quietly positioned itself for something much bigger, being the infrastructure layer for real-world financial flows. Think about it, a smart contract platform built for compliance, transparency, and low fees. A network that already has relationships with global institutions and payment corridors. A DeFi ecosystem designed not for hype cycles, but for economic throughput. That's not a moonshot. That's an actual business model. And the craziest part? Most people still haven't caught on. They're too busy chasing the next 100x meme coin to realize that Stellar has completely transformed under the radar. So when Sorabon launched on mainnet, I knew I made the right call. But it didn't stop there. Because once Sorabon was live, the institutional signals started surfacing. And this is where it gets even more interesting. The rise of Sorabon, the smart contract game changer. Here's what most people still don't understand. Sorabon isn't just another smart contract layer. It's a strategic pivot, something that completely rewrites Stellar's role in the future of blockchain-based finance. When I first dug into Sorabon, I expected just another EVM clone. Let's be honest, almost every chain out there is using Ethereum's tech in some form. But Sorabon? It's built differently. It's written in Rust, it's WASM-based, and most importantly, it's natively integrated into Stellar's core. That means it doesn't sacrifice what made Stellar special in the first place. Keeps the speed, keeps the low fees, keeps the clean UX, and it adds true programmability without bloating the network or turning it into another overhyped DeFi playground. But here's what really blew my mind. Stellar didn't just slap smart contracts on the network and walk away. They took their time. Years of development, real auditing, incentivized testing, ecosystem support, dev tools, grant programs. They weren't racing to market, they were building something that lasts. And once Sorabon went live on mainnet, it wasn't just developers that took notice. Institutions started watching. Because now, for the first time, there's a blockchain that combines compliance-friendly architecture, built-in identity standards, seamless asset issuance, low-cost execution, real scalability. That combination doesn't exist anywhere else. Ethereum can't do it without rollups and a mess of layer 2s. Solana's still chasing uptime. Avalanche is fast but fragmented. Stellar, with Sorabon, is cohesive one ecosystem, purpose-built for real financial applications. And it gets even better, because Sorabon isn't launching in a vacuum. It's launching into a Stellar network that already has global liquidity corridors, anchors and off-ramps in dozens of countries, partnerships with Circle, MoneyGram, and government-backed pilots. And now, a fully programmable DeFi engine layered on top. It's not starting from zero. It's launching from a running start. And this is where the Palago Labs integration starts to make sense. Because Palago isn't just testing DeFi features, they're applying for real-world licenses, targeting institutional-grade clients, and bringing trade finance workflows on-chain. You don't build that on a testbed. You build it where regulators, liquidity, and infrastructure already live. You build it on Stellar. So while the price of XLM stayed flat, the entire foundation was being rebuilt, quietly, strategically, with long-term scale in mind. And that's when I realized I almost sold something that wasn't failing. It was loading. And what's coming next? That's what most people aren't ready for. Because while the market chases hype cycles, Stellar is about to unleash an ecosystem that's designed to move actual capital. And once capital flows, price follows. Real capital, real use cases, the institutional layer nobody's watching. This is where everything snapped into focus. Because once you zoom out from just the price chart, you start seeing what Stellar has really been doing, building the rails for regulated institutional-grade finance. And if you're still thinking of XLM as just a payments coin, you're missing the bigger play entirely. Let's break this down. Stellar is one of the only crypto networks that was built from day one with real-world compliance in mind. That's not sexy to retail investors. It doesn't pump tokens overnight. But it's exactly what institutions, fintechs, and governments are looking for. And you can already see who's showing up. MoneyGram didn't partner with just any chain. They chose Stellar to pilot their global crypto fiat on off-ramp system. Circle's USDC is natively integrated into the Stellar network, giving it a fully regulated, dollar-backed stablecoin that's live and usable today. And now with Palago Labs, you've got a DeFi player laser-focused on bringing trade finance on-chain. We're talking about actual business transactions, not speculative swaps. These aren't random partnerships. They're strategic placements in a broader plan to connect real-world finance to blockchain infrastructure. And here's the real kicker. The liquidity corridor Stellar has already opened. They're global. We're talking seamless asset movement between the US, Europe, Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia corridors that serve the unbanked, underbanked, and underserved. Not just retail users, but actual businesses that need capital flow across borders. Stellar is positioning itself as the neutral protocol layer for the next generation of financial rails. And with Sorabon now live, that layer becomes programmable. That means lending protocols, escrow systems, asset tokenization, yield vaults, regulated trading infrastructure, all of it programmable and enforceable through Sorabon contracts, but secured by Stellar's fast, fee-efficient consensus model. Now here's the crazy part. All of this is happening in plain sight, and the market still hasn't priced it in. Why? Because retail traders don't understand trade finance. They don't track real-world liquidity corridors. They're not watching IMF reports or development bank pilots using blockchain rails. But the institutions are. And they're already building. This is exactly why I didn't sell. Because when I looked under the hood, I realized Stellar isn't trying to be the next hype coin. It's building the financial operating system for the real economy. And that operating system is now fully programmable thanks to Sorabon. So while people chase memecoins and airdrops, Stellar's quietly onboarding the next generation of fintech. And if you're holding XLM, that should give you chills. Because when the capital flows through these rails, when the liquidity corridors light up, when businesses, banks, and nations start using Stellar to move value, that's not just bullish. That's inevitable. And I'm going to say something bold, but you need to hear it. This isn't the top of the cycle for XLM. This is the ground floor. Why I'm doubling down on XLM now. You want to know what separates people who survive crypto from those who make generational wealth. It's not just catching the hype. It's recognizing the setup before it becomes obvious. That's exactly where Stellar is right now. Let's be real. XLM has spent years as a sleeper. No massive price spikes. No hype-driven bull runs. That's turned a lot of traders off. But for me, that's a signal. Because while retail's been distracted, the foundation has been rebuilt. Here's the setup I'm seeing right now. Smart contracts are now live on mainnet. Sorabon is ready. Developers are building real use cases with institutional focus, starting with trade finance. Partners like Circle and MoneyGram are scaling on Stellar rails. Palago Labs is already onboarding real-world use cases, not just DeFi clones. And global liquidity corridors are live, functioning, and expanding. This isn't theory. This is execution. And while most people are still waiting for a signal from a chart, I'm looking at a network that has everything it needs to explode, not because of hype, but because of utility. So what do I do when I see a setup like that? I double down. Because if you believe blockchain will replace legacy financial rails, and let's be honest, that's the whole thesis, then Stellar is one of the most underrated bets in this entire market. Think about the asymmetric upside here. You're looking at a project that already solved the scaling problem, has compliance baked into its DNA, just added programmable logic to unlock massive DeFi and institutional innovation, has a native token, XLM, that plays a critical role in network fees, liquidity routing, and asset issuance. And it's still trading at a fraction of its previous all-time high. That's not weakness. That's compressed opportunity. People ask me, why haven't we seen the price move yet? My answer, because the infrastructure always comes first. Then the capital flows. Then the supply shock. And then the market wakes up. By that time, it's too late. Because the institutions don't announce their buys. The funds don't post their wallets. The builders don't market to TikTok. They just quietly accumulate, test, deploy, and scale. And when retail finally catches on, the exit ramp is already closed. I've seen it happen before. Ethereum in 2017. Chainlink in 2019. Solana in 2020. The narrative always shifts after the infrastructure is locked and loaded. Right now, Stellar is locked and loaded. And I'm not just holding. I'm positioning for what comes next. Because once the world realizes what Sorabon really unlocks, once Palago and other players light up the institutional rails, XLM won't be sitting at these prices. That's why I'm glad I didn't sell. But it's also why I'm doing this video, because most people still don't see it. Now let's wrap this up. The window is closing. Fast. Let me say this one more time. I almost sold my XLM. I almost walked away before Sorabon launched. Before Palago Labs activated. Before Stellar quietly positioned itself as the on-chain layer for real finance. But I held on. I looked deeper. And now, I see what's coming. Because here's the hard truth. The biggest gains in crypto never go to the loudest coins. They go to the quiet infrastructure plays that nobody's paying attention to. Until it's too late. And right now, Stellar is still being underestimated. The tech is live. The partners are locked in. The smart contracts are active. The real-world rails are functional. But the price? Still asleep. That won't last much longer. And when this thing wakes up, when the market realizes Stellar isn't just surviving, it's leading the next financial evolution, you won't get a second chance to buy in this low. So if you're sitting on the sidelines, if you're waiting for some magical signal to move, this is it. This video is your signal. The data is here. The infrastructure is built. The upside is still wildly asymmetric. But only if you're early. So here's what I want you to do right now. Smash that subscribe button. Turn on the bell. Because here at Be Crypto Smart, we're not chasing hype, we're front-running real utility, real infrastructure, and real wealth-building opportunities. The next wave of crypto isn't meme coins. It's infrastructure with purpose. It's networks that solve real-world problems. And Stellar is one of the most powerful examples of that. But by the time the headlines start rolling in, it'll already be too late. So don't be the person who says, I wish I had known. Be the one who saw it before the breakout. Subscribe now. Stay ahead. And don't sleep on XLM again. Because the next chapter is already being written. And trust me, you're going to want front row access.